Thunder cracks across the jagged peaks of the Blackridge Mountains, a sharp, jagged roar that shakes the night. Rain lashes the forest like 1,000 icy needles, soaking through the canopy and driving into her skin, chilling her to the bone. Lyra Vale runs barefoot through the mud, her torn white shift clinging to her like a second, wet skin. Each step pulls her deeper into the darkness, but she cannot stop. Not yet. Behind her, the mournful howls of wolves slice through the storm. Not wild wolves her own pack, her former family, the ones who should have protected her. Their voices are familiar and terrifying all at once, each note a reminder of betrayal, a song of judgment she cannot escape. Her heart pounds against her ribs like a drum of warning, her lungs burning with cold air, sharp and metallic in her chest. She knows if she falters now, if she slows, they will catch her. Her inner wolf claws at her from inside, craving release, demanding transformation, pleading for freedom. It's a scream she has learned to swallow. She cannot shift yet. If she does, the scent she carries will give her away, marking her as prey in ways her human form has so far evaded. The power flickers beneath her skin, a silver flame she has carried all her life like a secret, a sin, a promise. And she whispers into the rain, trembling with exhaustion and rage, "He was supposed to be my mate." The memory strikes her like a knife. Rowan. His cold eyes, the hard edge of rejection, the silent judgment that crushed her in front of them all. She can feel the echo of it in her chest, a hollow ache that no warmth or fire can fill. Every step through the mud presses the pain deeper, every drop of rain against her face a mirror of the tears she refuses to let fall. She is hunted. She is exiled. She is alone. And yet, somewhere beneath the fear, a spark of defiance burns. Her foot slips on slick stone hidden under leaves, and she tumbles forward, barely catching herself on the trunk of a moss-covered tree. Pain explodes up her leg, sharp and hot, but she grits her teeth and forces herself up again. The ground below slopes into a ravine, dark and wide and merciless. One misstep could break more than her pride could break her body, maybe her life. Her pulse hammers in her ears, the storm drowning everything else except the pounding rhythm of her own fear and resolve. And then, faintly at first, her silver flame responds. It ripples beneath her skin, trembling, a soft glow that flares in the darkness, a dangerous heartbeat of power she has hidden all her life. The trees seem to lean closer, ancient and alive, their branches whispering in voices only the wind can carry. Leaves brush her cheek as if calling her name. A voice, low and measured, rises from the darkness. "Keep running, little flame. You're not safe yet." It is not mocking. It is not comforting. It is a warning, a promise, and it cuts straight through her chest, setting her nerves on fire with a mixture of dread and anticipation. She stumbles again, catching herself against jagged roots that tear through her hands. Pain blossoms across her palms, and her knees slam into wet earth, the sting of it snapping her attention back to the present. Rain washes over her face, blurring the edges of the forest, but she feels the presence behind the voice, unseen but palpable. Her body shakes not just from the cold, not just from the fatigue, but from something deeper, a tremor that runs through her bones and reaches the silver flame buried beneath her skin. She crawls under the roots of an ancient tree, tangled and protective, her body trembling as she presses herself against the mud, hiding from both the storm and the hunters that are never far behind. Her wet hair clings to her cheeks, her lungs burn with every shallow breath. Blood mixes with rainwater on her hands, and she presses them to her face, trying to scrub away the evidence of her vulnerability. Her heart is still hammering, her wolf clawing inside, desperate to rise, desperate to howl, desperate to declare that she is here, that she is alive, that she will not be crushed by the world. And yet, fear grips her harder. Not just fear of the pack that chases her, not just fear of the storm, not just fear of the secret power she cannot yet control, but fear of Rowan, of betrayal, of love turned cold. She remembers his eyes, the way they hardened when he said what he did, the way his rejection felt like a sentence carved into her very bones. The memory stabs her anew, sharper than any lightning bolt that splits the sky above. "I should have died before letting him see me beg," she whispers into the mud, her voice barely audible over the thunder, her words a mixture of shame and defiance. And even as she whispers, the forest seems to respond, holding its breath with her. Each drop of rain against her skin becomes a note in a symphony of tension and fear. Each gust of wind carries the scent of earth and danger, of predators and of secrets that have waited centuries for the right moment. She can feel the storm press against her, pressing her back against the gnarled roots, forcing her to confront her limits, forcing her to confront herself. Her body is exhausted. Her mind is screaming. Her soul is trembling with the enormity of everything she has carried in silence. Yet beneath the terror, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the shivering of every muscle, a single truth burns as brightly as her hidden flame. She will not submit. She cannot submit. There is something in her blood, something in her bones, something in the silver fire of her soul that refuses surrender, no matter how much the storm rages or how close her enemies come. She curls tighter under the roots, pressing her cheek to the wet earth, letting the cold soak her bones, letting the rain wash over her like baptism in chaos, and she vows silently, fiercely, without words, that she will rise, that she will fight, that she will claim the life she has been denied. And even in the midst of her fear, even as the howl of wolves echoes closer, even as the lightning splits the sky in brilliant, terrifying flashes, she feels it, a heartbeat, not her own. A presence strong and watchful, near but not here. The forest seems tense, holding space for what is to come, and she knows in the marrow of her bones that she is on the edge of something far larger than herself, something dangerous, something beautiful, something that will change everything. She closes her eyes briefly, tasting the rain, feeling the mud, feeling the ache in her limbs and the fire in her veins. She allows herself a single, deep breath, letting it tremble through her chest, shaking away some of the panic that threatens to consume her. Every instinct screams at her to run again, to vanish into the storm, to escape the storm, the wolves, the betrayal, but she also knows that running is not enough. Not tonight. Tonight is only the beginning. Tonight, survival is her first victory, and every heartbeat she keeps, every shiver she survives, is proof that she is stronger than the darkness that hunts her. Her whisper rises again, soft but unbroken. "I should have died before letting him see me beg." The words hang in the night, dripping into the mud and mixing with the storm, and for a moment, the forest falls silent around her. Even the wolves' howls seem to pause, as if listening. Even the wind seems to still, trembling on the edge of revelation. Even the lightning holds its breath, illuminating her small, trembling figure in stark silver and black. She is alone, she is hunted, she is terrified, and yet, she is here. And then, almost impossibly softly, almost as if the storm itself leans in to speak, a voice cuts through the rain and thunder, a voice that is not hers and not the pack's, a voice that seems to belong to the shadows themselves. If stories like hers set your soul on fire, subscribe to Moonlight Desires. Because here, love always has claws. Her breath catches, her pulse races, and somewhere deep in the storm-tossed forest, hidden from eyes and yet utterly seen, Lyra Vale waits, trembling, burning, alive, and ready. The forest seems endless, a dark labyrinth of shadows and dripping leaves, the rain pounding over her like a relentless drumbeat. Lyra's legs ache, muscles screaming with every desperate step, but she forces herself forward. Fear curls around her chest, a heavy chain of dread and adrenaline, and yet she cannot stop, not while the wolves' howls echo behind her, not while the storm presses in from all sides. She senses eyes, faint, almost impossible to place. Something watches. Something waits. Her breath catches, her heart hammers, and the silver flame beneath her skin stirs again, a quiet pulse, warning her of the presence that lingers just beyond the edge of the trees. Then he appears. Kael Draven steps from the darkness with a silence that is unnatural, almost preternatural. He does not stumble through the mud, does not slip over the slick roots. He moves as though the forest bends for him, as though the rain parts at his command. Even in the storm, he seems untouched, untouchable, radiating a power that twists the air, bends the shadows, and makes the trees themselves lean away. His eyes find hers before she fully registers him, piercing through the rain and mud, through the terror and the silver flame that flickers beneath her skin. Her chest tightens. She knows him. Not from memory, not from history. She has never seen him, but in her blood, in her bones, in the whispered instincts of her wolf, she knows him. "You're Lyra Vale," he says, voice low, carrying an edge of both curiosity and authority, a weight that presses down on her and lifts her at the same time. Her name rolls off his tongue like a promise she never dared hope for, and fear twists into confusion. How could he know her? Who is he to claim such certainty in a world that has spat on her from birth? The wolves behind her halt mid-howl. Their tension snaps, their senses screaming a warning that she doesn't fully understand. She stumbles backward, mud sliding from her wet feet, and her hands claw at the earth as she forces herself to stand. The fire inside her pulses hotter, sharper. Every instinct tells her to run, to hide, to vanish into the forest, yet every instinct also screams that she cannot. He is not the pack behind her. He is something else. Something dangerous. Something compelling. "Stay still," he commands, and it is not a request. The syllables are heavy, deliberate, and yet there is no malice. There is calculation. Precision. And something darker, something that makes her chest tighten, that makes her breath catch in the storm-torn forest. She does not obey immediately. She cannot. Fear warps her movements, shakes her resolve, claws at her pride. But she stops, finally, one trembling foot in front of the other, a heartbeat away from collapsing entirely. The man steps closer, boots sinking into the mud, water running off the edges of his cloak. His face is half hidden in the hood he pulls low, yet even in shadows, she sees the sharp line of his jaw, the curve of his mouth, the intensity of his eyes. Kael Draven is no stranger to battle, no stranger to blood, no stranger to danger. But there is something more here, something beyond the predator she expects in the night. There is a burden, a weight carried silently in his stance, in the slight tilt of his shoulders, in the tension of his fingers. He carries demons, yes, but not all of them are his own. "You're hurt," he says, more observation than question, and she stiffens. She does not answer. Her leg burns where she scraped it on the jagged roots. Her hands ache from digging into mud. Her lungs scream with every breath. And yet she feels seen. Truly seen, for the first time in a long, shivering life. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he continues, eyes scanning the tree-line, noting the distant forms of wolves, the faint glimmers of light reflecting on wet fur. He does not smile. He does not offer comfort. He only states what is, as though speaking the truth of the world itself, and somehow, that is both terrifying and grounding. She wants to hate him, to scream at him to leave her, to disappear before he learns her weakness, but the words stick in her throat. The raw, unfiltered truth in his voice presses into her like a hand on her chest, and she cannot tear herself away. Her wolf stirs inside her again, restless, aching for freedom, for release, for the shift that would make her unstoppable. She fights it, tries to suppress it, tries to remain human, but the danger in the air, the storm, the presence of Kael Draven, makes the pulse of her power quicken. She feels it flare, silver and uncontainable beneath her skin, a soft, dangerous glow that brushes her consciousness with a whisper of what she might become if she lets go. Kael notices. Of course he notices. His gaze flickers over her, sharp, assessing, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, just a blink of awareness, something unspoken passes between them. Recognition. Understanding. A shared acknowledgement of the power she carries and the danger it represents. He does not reach for her. He does not speak it aloud. But the tension between them tightens, stretches taut like a drawn bowstring. "You don't belong to them," he murmurs, almost under his breath, yet she hears it as if it were shouted into her very soul. "You never did." Her chest tightens. Her stomach knots. Fear and confusion twist together in a storm as potent as the one that rains down around them. He is right. She doesn't belong. Not to the pack that hunted her, not to the world that scorned her, not even to herself. And yet, there is a pull she cannot resist. A magnetic tug of curiosity, of defiance, of the faintest spark of trust. "Why are you here?" she whispers finally, voice trembling, raw, unguarded. She regrets it instantly, the sound of vulnerability leaving her throat, but she cannot unsay it. The storm, the night, the relentless pursuit, the silver fire in her veins, all of it strips her defenses down to the bone. He tilts his head, studying her, weighing her, and the shadows in his eyes deepen. "Because I was watching," he admits, and the words hit her harder than any strike. Not cruel, not mocking, just truth. He has been observing her, tracking her, seeing her, perhaps even understanding her in ways no one else ever could. The sensation is electric, disorienting, frightening. She wants to scream, to run, to vanish into the rain, but something, deep and primal, roots her to the spot. And then he moves. Not like a predator striking, but like a force of nature claiming its own space. One fluid motion, one step closer, and the distance between fear and fascination collapses entirely. She can see the fine line of scars along his hands, the small imperfections that betray humanity beneath the alpha's veneer. The perfect posture, the rigid composure, they are armor. And yet, even through armor, she senses vulnerability, danger, history, grief. A man who has known loss, who has bled and survived, who carries a storm of his own inside. "You need to stop running," he says, voice low, insistent, but not cruel. It vibrates through the air, through the rain, through the silver pulse under her skin. She shivers, and it's impossible to tell if it's from cold or from the intensity of being seen. "I won't hurt you. But you can't keep hiding forever." Her fingers curl, digging into the mud beneath her, the wet earth cold and unforgiving against her skin. Her wolf claws at her, snarling, demanding action, and she fights it back. She cannot shift. She cannot risk revealing herself, not yet. And still, the pull toward him, the magnetic tension, grows. Every instinct screams danger. Every instinct also whispers, strangely, irresistibly, that Kael Draven is no ordinary man. He is the eye of the storm, the force that can see her, perhaps even understand the fire she has long hidden from the world. "You've been running for more than them," he continues, taking another step closer. His voice lowers almost to a growl, resonant with authority, with warning, with something intimate she cannot name. "You've been running from yourself." Her breath hitches. Her chest feels tight. He knows. He sees. He understands more than she intended to reveal. And the vulnerability she has fought to suppress, the terror, the shame, the anger, begins to fracture, just slightly, just enough for her to glimpse the possibility that perhaps she doesn't have to fight alone. Perhaps, in the storm, in the mud, in the rain-soaked forest, there is someone who will see the flame and not recoil. She wants to speak, to challenge, to throw herself into defiance, but words fail her. They are drowned out by the rain, by the pounding of her heart, by the raw, electric energy of his presence. Her wolf snarls silently inside, trembling with frustration, with fear, with longing. Kael tilts his head again, studying her as one studies a puzzle, a rare and dangerous artifact that must be approached with care. "I'm not your enemy," he says finally, voice softer now, yet still carrying the weight of command. "But I am not your friend either. Not yet. And not until you let me see the truth of you." She swallows hard, her throat raw, her body trembling, every nerve alight with fear, with anticipation, with the pull of something she cannot define. And in that moment, in the rain and mud and storm, she senses it as the faintest, most dangerous spark of trust, of connection, of inevitability. And the storm continues to roar. The forest around them is still, the storm having passed as if it had never been, leaving only a chill in the air and the scent of wet earth. Lyra trembles, shivering not just from cold but from adrenaline, from the strange, disorienting closeness of Kael Draven. He steps back slightly, granting her space, yet even from a few feet away, his presence is overwhelming, a force of authority, of danger, and of something raw and magnetic she cannot name. Her wolf thrums inside her, restless and impatient, straining at the confines of flesh and fear. She wants to run. She wants to collapse. She wants to fight him, push him away, and yet every instinct, every heartbeat whispers that she cannot. Not tonight. She stumbles forward, the mud squelching beneath her feet, her muscles screaming in protest. Her chest aches from the effort of breathing, from the weight of the fear and the storm, from the memory of Rowan's eyes burning her with rejection. She sees the way Kael watches her, cautious, deliberate, calculating, not predator, not friend, but something in between. His gaze is sharp, assessing, unflinching, and it unnerves her more than the pack ever could. "You're bleeding," he says quietly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade softened with silk. She knows he is right. She can feel the sting of cuts along her arms, the scrape on her leg, the small punctures along her palms where roots tore her. The mud is streaked with blood, mixing with the rain-soaked earth. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he adds, softer this time, but no less firm, and the words land like an accusation she cannot meet. I'm fine," she whispers, but the lie trembles in her voice, betraying her exhaustion, her vulnerability. Every fiber of her being aches with the weight of flight, of betrayal, of survival. Her wolf howls silently inside her chest, yearning to burst free, but she clamps down, forcing the fire beneath her skin into flickers, into fragile, dangerous sparks. Kael steps closer again, slow, deliberate, the sound of his boots barely audible over the dripping forest. "Lyra Vale," he says, almost reverently, almost like a prayer, and the way he says her name makes her heart seize. It is not kindness, it is recognition. Recognition she has not felt in years. Recognition that terrifies her almost as much as it comforts. She stiffens, chest tight, wanting to recoil, wanting to vanish into the shadows, yet the pull of his gaze roots her in place. The wind shifts, brushing cold against her wet skin. The rain-soaked forest smells of earth, moss, and wet leaves, but beneath it is something else, a faint tang of metal, of danger, of life teetering on the edge. Kael's presence slices through it all, sharp and undeniable, a predator tempered by awareness, a force of nature that sees her not just as prey, not just as exile, but as something dangerous, something alive, something unbroken. "You shouldn't exist," he mutters suddenly, the words low, careful, almost a confession, almost a curse, and they hit her harder than any blow. Her silver flame thrums beneath her skin at the accusation, flaring in response, invisible yet tangible, a heartbeat of power she has fought to conceal all her life. "I wish I didn't," she whispers back, voice trembling, raw, heavy with the weight of every rejection, every exile, every whispered accusation that has ever followed her. The words slip into the forest like smoke, curling and dissipating, yet leaving a residue of pain and defiance. Her pulse races, thunderous in her ears, each beat a drum of survival, of resistance, of something far deeper than fear. He does not flinch. He does not recoil. His gaze locks onto her, dark and calculating, and for a moment, she is stripped bare beneath it. Every scar, every wound, every tremor of doubt or fear lays itself open, and he sees it all. Not pity, not judgment. Recognition. Understanding. Something that borders on awe, tempered by caution. His presence is a storm in itself, commanding and dangerous, yet there is an undercurrent of care, faint, tentative, almost invisible, like a whisper she must strain to hear. The forest seems to hold its breath around them. Rain trickles from the leaves in uneven drips, each splash on mud or stone accentuating the tense silence. Wolves, distant, halt their movements, their howls fading into anxious murmurs. Even the storm clouds above seem suspended, frozen, as though the world itself waits for what will happen next. Lyra's knees buckle, and she sinks to the mud, pressing her palms against the cold earth. Pain radiates from her scrapes and bruises, her muscles burning, her lungs screaming for air. Her wolf claws at her from within, impatient, hungry for release, and she fights it, suppressing the urge to shift, to break the fragile human form she has clung to for survival. Kael crouches slightly, still a measured distance away, his eyes never leaving her. She feels the pull again, a magnetic force that threatens to draw her toward him, to shatter the careful walls she has built around herself. "I'm not going to hurt you," he says, voice softer now, almost intimate, almost a balm, yet it carries weight, authority, and inevitability all at once. She wants to believe him. She wants to trust. Her chest tightens with the internal tug-of-war between instinct and hope. But fear, betrayal, and years of exile cling like shackles, heavy and suffocating. "Why are you here?" she asks finally, voice trembling, a whisper carried away by the dripping rain and distant rumble of clouds. Her words hang exposed, raw, and the admission of need, of curiosity, of vulnerability makes her stomach knot with shame. She cannot run from it, not from him, not from the strange, stirring connection that flares beneath her skin like her silver flame. "Because I've been watching," he admits, low, deliberate, a confession that feels dangerous, like fire edging closer to kindling. "Because you've been running from more than them. You've been running from yourself." The statement presses down on her like the cold storm air, impossible to escape, inescapable as truth. Her pulse races. Her wolf snarls quietly in protest and longing, and she feels her strength, her power, her vulnerability all stripped down to bare essence. She knows he sees the fire, the danger, the exile, the betrayal, and the impossible beauty of her soul, and she cannot hide from it. He steps closer again, boots sinking slightly in the mud, water cascading from his cloak. The storm, the darkness, the night, everything fades into insignificance compared to the presence before her. His gaze pierces, sharp and calculating, and the pull between fear and fascination twists inside her chest like a living thing. She wants to push away, to scream, to vanish into the shadows and rain, yet her body, her senses, her very instincts betray her. "You survived rejection," Kael murmurs, almost to himself, yet she hears it, every syllable a weight pressing into her chest. "That makes you dangerous." She closes her eyes briefly, letting the rain soak her hair and skin, letting the storm drench her completely. The words echo inside her, intertwining with memories of Rowan, the cold rejection, the whispers of her mother's warnings, the exile she endured. She feels every scar, every bite of betrayal, every heartbeat of shame and defiance all at once. And she realizes that yes, she is dangerous. Dangerous not because she wishes it, not because she craves it, but because she has survived, because she has endured, because she carries a fire inside her that refuses to be snuffed out. Kael does not move. He watches. He waits. He allows her to breathe, to shiver, to tremble, to acknowledge the storm inside her. His eyes soften fractionally, not completely, but enough that she senses the faintest glimmer of something she cannot name: trust, perhaps, or recognition, or even understanding. The rain intensifies for a moment, hammering against leaves, against mud, against flesh, and the forest seems to roar around them in response to the tension that hangs like a live wire between them. Lyra swallows hard, lungs burning, wolf inside still restless, and she realizes that in this strange, impossible moment, she is no longer just running. She is standing. She is enduring. She is beginning to acknowledge that the storm outside mirrors the storm within, and perhaps, just perhaps, that she is not entirely alone in it. Kael inclines his head slightly, the gesture subtle, measured, almost imperceptible. "You're stronger than you know," he murmurs, voice low, resonant, layered with something that makes her chest ache. "And if you survive what's coming, you will change everything." Lyra's pulse hammers, her wolf snarls inside her, her silver flame flickers with a dangerous intensity, and she realizes that the night, the forest, the storm, they are no longer her only enemies. The danger, the thrill, The magnetism of him, the alpha who watches, who understands, who could destroy or protect, has become as real, as threatening, as irresistible as anything she has faced. And somewhere deep inside, beneath fear and pain and exhaustion, a tiny ember of something else begins to burn. Not hope, not trust, not surrender, but a seed of connection, of intrigue, of the impossible truth that she may have found someone who can truly see her without flinching. The storm does not stop. The wolves do not relent. But Lyra Vale stands, trembling, burning, alive, and entirely, terrifyingly human. And Kael, Draven, mysterious, dangerous, conflicted, remains the eye of her storm. The chill of dawn has not yet reached the forest, but Kael's presence burns hotter than any sun. Lyra trudges behind him, each step through the wet, tangled undergrowth, a battle against exhaustion, against doubt, against the tremor of anticipation coiling in her chest. The silver flame beneath her skin pulses faintly, responding to the forest itself, or perhaps to him, but she cannot tell where the forest ends and Kael begins. Shadows stretch long, broken by shafts of pale moonlight, still clinging stubbornly to the remnants of the storm, and each step carries a thrill of both dread and wonder. He does not speak, but she feels the weight of his eyes upon her, sharp and steady, a quiet force that pushes her forward. The forest shifts around them, the wind whispering in leaves and branches, carrying scents she does not know yet, a promise, an omen, a warning. The path narrows. Roots twist like serpents underfoot. And then, finally, they reach the clearing. The moonwell. It is small, ancient, forbidden. A pool of water so black and still it could swallow the sky. Mist curls over its surface, carrying with it the scent of old magic, of power that has slept for centuries. Stones carved with symbols older than memory ring the water's edge, their edges smooth, but their power sharp, humming with life beneath her skin. Lyra stops, breath caught, eyes wide, every instinct screaming at her to flee, to hide, to run back into the safety of the darkened forest. Yet she cannot. Not now. Something in the water calls her. Something in the stones whispers her name with a voice older than time itself. Kael kneels at the edge of the moonwell, fingers brushing the surface of the black water, and the pool responds. Ripples spread, silver sparks like fire dancing across the reflection of the moon. Lyra's chest tightens. The water shifts and changes, showing her things that should not exist, visions that set her soul trembling. A wolf of pure silver flame, taller than any she has seen, with eyes like molten stars, prowls across the moonlit landscape of her mind. She gasps. Kael appears kneeling before her in the vision, head bowed, reverence in every line of his form, and her breath hitches, tight, shallow. Blood drips from the moon above, a crimson streak across a silver sky, and a voice floats from the mist. The child of flame will burn or bless us all. She staggers backward, almost falling to her knees on the damp earth. The words echo in her chest, shaking something deep, primal, unformed. Her pulse races, every vein a drum of panic and disbelief. She can feel her wolf clawing, tearing, begging for freedom, but the magic of the moonwell presses down, restrains, illuminates, and frightens her in equal measure. I can't be your prophecy, she whispers, voice raw, trembling, swallowed in the mist. Kael stands behind her now, tall, imposing, yet his hand hovers close enough to touch without touching, a tether, a lifeline, a threat. Then what are you? His voice is quiet, but it carries a weight that presses against the hollow chambers of her fear. She trembles, shoulders shaking, eyes wide with terror and confusion, every muscle taut with uncertainty. A mistake, she breathes, barely able to form the words, yet the admission tastes like ash and iron on her tongue. The wind stirs, carrying whispers, faint voices brushing against her consciousness, tempting her, teasing her with glimpses of power and destiny she does not yet dare claim. The moonwell responds, silver sparks flickering along the surface, reflecting not only the night sky, but the flickering flame beneath her skin, the fire she has long denied, long hidden, long feared. Her wolf growls softly, a warning, a plea, a roar stifled inside her as she takes an unsteady step closer to the water. Kael's hand brushes her light, deliberate, and the world shifts. Memories, sensations, shadows, and light ripple between them, unspoken, unbroken. He sees the rejection, the exile, the bloodied humiliation Rowan carved into her soul. He sees her mother's death, a loss carried in quiet moments and secret tears. He sees the whispers that haunted her childhood, daughter of the silver flame, muttered behind closed doors, in corners, in the shadows of the pack that would never accept her. And she feels his history, two scars on his hands, traces of betrayal and blood, a mother lost, a kingdom won through carnage and cruelty tempered by necessity. They stare, eyes locking, and for a heartbeat, time fractures. Every fear, every longing, every piece of loneliness she has carried for years converges in that tether between them. Her fingers tremble where they brush his, silver fire prickling at her skin, and she sees the weight he carries not just as an alpha, not just as a warrior, but as a man who understands the ache of being unwanted, misunderstood, feared. "I know what it is to be unwanted," he murmurs, voice low, resonant, carrying pain, empathy, and power, and it pierces her chest with such force that she can barely breathe. Her wolf trembles inside, hesitant, conflicted, aching, but she does not shift. Not yet. Her silver flame flickers faintly, lighting her skin in tiny, dangerous pulses, and Kael watches with a mixture of fascination and caution. The mist curls over the moonwell, cold, ethereal, carrying visions she cannot control. She sees herself standing amidst fire and shadow, a wolf of silver flame, prowling the ruins of a world she does not yet understand. She sees Rowan kneeling, face a mask of fear and regret, and she shudders, heart aching, torn between fury, grief, and something softer she refuses to name. And Kael, always Kael, remains tethered to her vision, a shadow of protection, of inevitability, of connection she cannot deny. She collapses to her knees by the water, the wet earth cold against her palms, the fog curling around her like a blanket of secrets. "I can't do this," she whispers, voice raw, trembling, barely audible over the rustle of leaves and the faint drip of water from stone. "I can't be what anyone expects." Kael crouches beside her now, steady, calm, commanding, yet not forceful. The wind lifts his hair, brushes his cloak across the ground, and in his eyes is a storm just as potent as hers. "Then define it," he says, voice soft, insistent. "What are you, Lyra Vale, if not what they prophesied?" Her hand trembles, hovering over the surface of the moonwell. Silver fire dances faintly beneath her skin, reflected in the black water, her own eyes, and the brief glimmer of Kael's. She feels the pull, the inevitability, the whisper of destiny tugging her forward even as doubt tightens its grip. A mistake, she breathes again, but the words taste different now, tinged with defiance, with fear, with the first inkling of power claiming her identity. Kael's gaze softens fractionally, yet intensity remains. A mistake that survived. A flame that refuses to die. That is dangerous, Lyra. Dangerous enough to burn or bless us all. She shivers violently, not from cold, but from the weight of that truth, from the enormity of what it means to be more than exile, more than rejected, more than feared. Her silver flame flares, bright and uncontainable beneath her skin, as though the moonwell itself is acknowledging her, calling her, shaping her. She tastes the storm of her own potential, every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of fear and hope converging into one impossible, overwhelming reality. She is no longer just Lyra Vale. She is something else. Something dangerous. Something inevitable. He extends a hand, and she touches it. Not as a plea, not as surrender, but as acknowledgement. The moment their fingers brush, the world shifts. Memories ripple across their connection. She sees his battles, his scars, his losses. He sees her pain, her exile, her fire. The tether between them snaps into clarity, unbreakable, unavoidable. "I know what it is to be unwanted," Kael whispers again, voice carrying not just understanding but a promise, a recognition, a warning. And I will not let that happen to you again. Lyra's pulse hammers in response, fear, attraction, awe, and defiance twisting together inside her. The moonwell shimmers faintly, reflecting the silver flame that dances beneath her skin, the pull of destiny, and the impossible, dangerous bond forming between her and the Alpha who watches, who understands, who could be her salvation or her ruin. Her breath catches, and she realizes, even in the cold mist of the sacred grove, that nothing will ever be the same again. Not the forest, not the storm, not Rowan, not the pack, not even her own heart. The child of flame is awake. The night sky is a deep, bruised violet, pierced by the silver light of the full moon, sharp and unrelenting. Lyra stands at Kael's side in the high hall of the fortress, stone walls slick with moisture from the storm and the chill that has settled into the air. The room is heavy with tension, the scent of damp stone and burning torches mingling with something older, something ominous, something alive. Every shadow stretches toward them, alive with whispers, with speculation, with threats barely masked beneath the veneer of loyalty. Darius, Kael's beta, steps forward, his voice low but firm, carrying the authority that comes from survival and experience. Kael, he says, his eyes flicking to Lyra and then back to Kael, sharp, wary, like a wolf sizing up prey. The Pax will rebel if she stays. They will not accept her blood, her flame, her very existence will ignite a war we cannot contain. Lyra flinches. She knows it's true. She has felt it in whispers along the wind, in the watchful eyes of the pack, in every shadowed glance. Her presence here is a provocation, a challenge, a danger she never sought to impose. The weight of it presses down on her chest like the stone walls themselves, heavy, unforgiving. She can feel the panic rising in her throat, the familiar surge of fear and guilt that always follows her, a constant companion since the day Rowan's eyes rejected her in front of everyone. Kael's gaze flickers toward her, sharp, unyielding, unafraid, and then he turns back to Darius. Let them try, he says, voice low, calm, yet carrying a tremor of fire beneath its surface. There is no doubt in it, no hesitation. The authority he exerts is not brute force, it is inevitability, the gravity of a man who knows the cost, but does not flinch. Lyra's chest tightens. Part of her feels relief, a pull of desire she does not yet name. But another part that has carried the weight of exile, rejection, and cursed power trembles with fear. She does not want this war. Not in her name. Not because of her. The tension does not wait. It builds, coils, snaps. Kael leads her to the sacred moon chamber, the floor slick with polished stone, etched with ancient runes that shimmer faintly under the moonlight filtering through high windows. The room is meant for ceremony, for clarity, for judgment, but tonight, it will bear witness to chaos. The air vibrates with expectation, the sound of whispers and shifting feet growing louder, like a storm ready to break. And then Rowan appears. The moment he steps into the circle of silver light, the air shifts. He is taller than memory, broader, his presence radiating authority, menace, and disdain. His warriors flank him like shadows brought to life, teeth bared, muscles coiled, eyes locked on Lyra. Her stomach twists. Fear and fury rise together, a storm inside her chest. Rowan's gaze finds hers, hard and unyielding. His voice carries across the chamber like a blade. She carries the cursed flame. She is not one of us. She must die. Time seems to slow. The murmurs of the crowd fade into an ominous hum, the torches flaring brighter, casting dancing shadows across the walls. Lyra's pulse pounds in her ears, each beat a drum of terror and determination. She cannot move fast enough to escape the weight of his words, the condemnation in every syllable, the history of betrayal and pain embedded in his gaze. Her wolf snarls from inside, trembling with frustration, aching to leap, to fight, to release the fire she has always feared. Kael steps in front of her, boots scraping on stone, his stance unwavering, shoulders squared, every muscle a line of defense and authority. His voice rumbles low, dangerous, undeniable. Touch her, he says, eyes blazing like stormlit skies, and you die. The chamber shivers with tension, the air thick with smoke from torches, magic, and rage. Wolves in the crowd begin to shift, fangs glinting, claws scraping stone. The silver flame within Lyra stirs, a quiet pulse growing stronger, mirroring the rising chaos. Her breath hitches. She trembles, not just from fear but from the raw, undeniable energy coiling through her body. She knows she is a force now, a spark, a flame, a danger she cannot fully control. The first clash is instantaneous. Rowan steps forward, warriors surging behind him like a wave of fangs and muscle. Sparks of silver fire flicker along Lyra's skin involuntarily, reacting to the threat, to the danger, to the history of blood that refuses to lie dormant. She feels panic surge, terror of the innocent, of Kael, of herself, and she does what she has done all her life. She runs. Feet pounding on slick stone, heart hammering, muscles screaming, she flees through the chaos, dodging snarling wolves, fire licking along the walls, smoke curling in oppressive waves. The air is thick, metallic, acrid, and she tastes it, smells it, feels it pressing into her lungs with every desperate breath. Her wolf claws at her from inside, screaming for release, for power, for defiance, but she cannot risk it, not yet. Innocents are in the chamber. Her fire, her strength, her curse, it is as dangerous as it is beautiful. Kael roars her name, a deep, primal sound that cuts through smoke and chaos, shakes the walls and her very bones. Lyra. His voice is both command and plea, a tether across the distance, yet she cannot stop. Not now. Not until she is beyond the reach of harm she might bring. Not until she has control. Behind her, chaos unfolds. Wolves shift violently, sparks of silver flame igniting along claws and teeth. Rowan's voice roars over the din, furious, unyielding, accusing. She is not one of us. She carries the cursed flame. Kill her now. And Kael, ever the wall, the storm, the shield, stands between her and the hate, his eyes blazing with protective fire, every line of his body a declaration of possession, of defiance, of inevitability. Lyra's lungs burn. Her muscles ache. Her chest feels too tight. The silver flame beneath her skin flares in warning, whispering, threatening to break free. She tastes the panic in her mouth, but also the thrill, the undeniable pull of power, of destiny, of something she cannot yet name. She runs, and the chamber behind her becomes a maelstrom of fire, smoke, teeth, claws, and shattered loyalty. Kael follows, not beside her, not above her, but behind her, roaring her name into the smoke, into the chaos, a tether of sound, of authority, of connection that cuts through the terror and the pounding of her own heart. She knows he will not falter. She knows he will not let her die. But she cannot stop. Not until she can control the flame. Not until she can survive her own power. Not until she is free from the chains of fear and rejection that have bound her for so long. The chamber erupts. Sparks of silver fire ignite along the edges of the stone. Wolves lunge, claws scraping, teeth gnashing, fangs flashing in torchlight. The smoke twists and curls, hiding shapes, revealing threats. Lyra stumbles, nearly falling as fire races along the walls, and she tastes fear as raw, as sharp, as vivid as blood on her tongue. She does not look back, cannot look back, yet she knows Kael is there, a constant presence behind her, a promise in the storm, a tether she cannot sever. She flees into the shadows, through hallways slick with rain and panic, her wolf clawing inside her, demanding control, demanding release, demanding power. Her breath is ragged. Her chest heaves. Her skin prickles with silver fire. And behind her, through smoke and chaos, through fire and fury, she hears the primal roar. Lyra, come back to me. The ice cave is silent, except for the faint drip of melting frost and the occasional scrape of snow against jagged stone. Lyra presses herself against the icy wall, knees drawn to her chest, teeth chattering, her wolf thrumming in restrained panic. The world outside the fire, the smoke, the chaos feels like another life, one she is not allowed to touch. Her silver flame flickers faintly beneath her skin, a pulse of power she cannot yet control, illuminating the frost in faint, ghostly glimmers. Days have passed in hiding. Days of hunger, of fear, of endless self-questioning. Her muscles ache from exertion, her lungs still burn from running, yet the adrenaline of survival has faded, leaving her raw, trembling, human in the silence of ice and stone. And then a sound. Footsteps. Careful, deliberate. Not the stomp of a predator seeking prey, but the careful, measured approach of someone who knows where to find her. Her pulse spikes. Instinct urges her to flee, to shift, to vanish into the shadows of the cave. But her wolf trembles, senses straining something different about this presence, familiar yet impossible. Kael collapses into the mouth of the cave, breathing ragged, body battered, blood streaking across his side. He leans against the ice, and for the first time in days, Lyra feels the weight of relief washing over her like a tidal wave. He is alive. He made it through. His hand brushes the ground unconsciously, a tremor running through his fingers, and she feels the echo of it against her own pulse. Without thinking, she moves forward, her own hands trembling as she kneels beside him. The tension is palpable, every muscle taut, every breath a delicate negotiation between fear and desire. She tends to his wounds, pressing ice against bruises, dabbing cloth to bleeding cuts. Her fingers brush his skin, hesitant, almost afraid of the electricity that passes between them. Kael flinches once, then relaxes, allowing her to care for him, trust lingering in the small, fragile space between them. The fire she lights, a small blaze flickering in the cave's entrance, casts soft light across their faces, shadows dancing like memories on the walls. Lyra finally exhales, the tension in her shoulders unraveling just slightly, and Kael turns to look at her, eyes dark, intense, impossible to read. "I've done worse," he says quietly, voice rough, low, and intimate. "Worse than this. Worse than you can imagine." His hand rests lightly on the stone beside him, but the proximity, the weight of his presence, feels like gravity itself pressing against her chest. She swallows, heart hammering, and slowly, almost painfully, begins to speak, revealing the fractures in her past she has carried alone for too long. "I was exiled," she admits, voice trembling small. "My pack, my mate, they all turned on me. They said I was too dangerous, too cursed. My mother," her voice falters, choked with grief. She didn't survive the fall of our pack." Kael listens, silent, and in that silence there is a strange intimacy, a connection forged in pain, in shared vulnerability. Finally, he speaks. "I've done things, terrible things," he confesses, voice rough. "I once killed my own brother to protect my people. I've worn blood on my hands, and I've lived with it every day. Every single day." Lyra's breath catches, chest tight with the weight of what she hears. She looks at him, sees the sharp angles of his face, the shadowed grief in his eyes, the fire that matches her own in intensity, though he hides it beneath layers of control and command. "And now," she whispers, voice fragile, barely audible over the crackle of the small fire, "you protect me?" He inclines his head slightly, dark eyes meeting hers. "You don't need protection," he murmurs, voice soft, intimate, yet undeniably commanding. "You need someone who sees you. Truly sees you. Not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as you." The words hang between them like a delicate promise, heavy and impossible. Lyra feels her chest tighten, her wolf pressing against her ribs, yearning, aching, sensing the pull of a bond that has been forming for days, weeks, longer than she cares to measure. The fire crackles, casting moving shadows across Kael's face, highlighting the lines of exhaustion, the scars, the imperfection, the humanity that draws her in like a moth to flame. She reaches for him almost without realizing it, fingers brushing his forearm. The contact is electric, a spark that shoots through her veins and makes her chest ache in ways she cannot name. Kael leans slightly closer, the motion slow, deliberate, reverent, as though he too feels the pull of something inevitable, fragile, and terrifying. The cave feels smaller, the fire brighter, the world outside irrelevant. The only things that exist are the warmth of his presence, the flicker of silver flame beneath her skin, the trembling electricity in the small space between them. The air shifts. The moonlight catches in the ice, scattering across the cave in fractured beams that dance across Kael's face. Lyra swallows hard, breath hitching, the moment fragile, suspended, impossibly intimate. She feels desire coil inside her, tight and dangerous, alongside fear, alongside the echo of her past, alongside the lingering terror of the silver flame she cannot yet fully control. Kael's hand hovers near hers, fingers brushing lightly against the skin of her wrist. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmurs, voice low, vulnerable, commanding all at once. "Not here. Not with me. Trust me or leave. The choice is yours." Her heart hammers. Her wolf claws at the edges of her control, but she hesitates. She wants to trust, wants to lean into the heat, the intimacy, the pull between them. But fear presses in, memory presses in, the weight of everything she has endured presses in. Trembling, she pulls slightly back, eyes meeting his with a fragile defiance. If I lose control, I could kill you." Kael's gaze softens, impossibly, heartbreakingly. "Then I'll die knowing I touched a star," he whispers, the words a vow, a confession, a promise. The fire flickers, the ice glimmers, the cave breathes around them. Lyra feels her pulse slow slightly, her wolf settling into quiet anticipation, her chest aching in new ways she has never known. The moment hangs, a fragile, perfect tension between fear and desire, between trust and the pull of destiny. They are near enough that their breath mingles, warm against the icy chill of the cave. Kael's hand moves closer, just barely grazing hers, and the sensation sends a shiver racing down her spine. She knows the danger, the impossibility, the consequences. She knows her fire, her power, her curse could end everything in an instant. Yet she cannot pull away completely, cannot sever the invisible tether that binds them, cannot deny the magnetic pull that has been building for days. The world outside fades entirely. There is no fortress, no storm, no Rowan, no pack, only the warmth of the fire, the glimmer of ice, the silver flame beneath her skin, and Kael, breathing heavily beside her, scarred, dangerous, and achingly human. Her wolf claws at the cage of flesh once more, protesting, yearning, aching, but she breathes through it, closes her eyes briefly, and simply allows herself to feel. To be near him. To be seen. To be known. Kael leans slightly closer, the proximity intolerable, electric, tender, and Lyra knows, with a quiet, terrifying certainty, that everything between them has shifted. That nothing will ever be the same. That the storm is not outside the cave, it is inside, in their tether, in their fire, in the impossible pull of two souls destined to collide, burn, and perhaps survive. She opens her eyes. The moonlight glints off the ice, catching on her silver flame, reflecting in Kael's dark, storm-filled gaze. And in that moment, she feels a fragile, tentative, intoxicating hope. That perhaps she does not have to face the fire alone. The fortress feels smaller somehow, as if the walls themselves have turned against her. Lyra is bound, wrists stinging, her silver flame simmering beneath her skin, restrained by chains that clink against stone. Her eyes, bright and sharp, dart to Darius. He stands across the hall, calm, composed, the mask of loyalty hiding the treachery underneath. She had trusted him. Once. And now she sees the truth, twisting like a dagger in her chest. The council sits in judgment above the hall, their shadows long and accusing under the torchlight. Faces she has never forgiven, never trusted, stare down at her. The air is thick with smoke and expectation, every breath weighted with threat. Darius steps forward, voice smooth, careful, a serpent's whisper. She belongs to no one here. Her lineage is cursed. She is the daughter of the Flame Queen. Destined to destroy all alphas. Lyra's chest tightens. Her mind spins, trying to hold on to the fragments of trust, the echoes of Kael's soft, protective words, the firelight from their shared moments in the cave. But the revelation cuts through, sharp as fangs, and she tastes blood on her tongue, bitter and metallic. She had known her power was dangerous, but never that her very existence could ignite annihilation. Her wolf thrashes inside, claws scraping, fangs gnashing, roaring for release. Kael steps forward, dark, tense, storm-tempered eyes flashing between her and the council. His lips part, words caught in the chasm of impossibility. Lyra, his voice is raw, fractured, as though he carries the weight of the world on his chest. The council leans in, voices tight with threat, orders slicing through the hall. Choose, Kael. Touch her, kill her, or allow her to fall. She cannot remain. Time slows, stretches, bends. Lyra sees him hesitate, sees the struggle behind his eyes, the battle between duty and desire, between control and the fire that has always roared beneath both their skins. Her chest aches with hope, with fear, with betrayal all at once. You're just like him, she spits, voice trembling with rage, grief, and disbelief. Just like Rowan. Too slow to act when it matters. Too afraid to protect me. Her words hang like sparks in the air, igniting something primal inside her. The silver flame beneath her skin flares, bright, dangerous, and uncontrollable, washing over her arms and neck in pulses that make the chains hiss against her flesh. The air around her vibrates, trembles, shimmers with heat and magic, the stone beneath her feet humming as if alive. Kael's eyes widen, dark with fear, awe, and pain. He reaches toward her, every muscle screaming with the need to protect, to stop her, to tether the storm she has become, but the chains are already tearing at her wrists. Sparks leap to the stone floor. Torches flare, shadows twisting grotesquely across walls, flickering in rhythm with the heartbeat of unleashed power. The hall erupts in chaos. Wolves roar, metal clangs, fire ignites, smoke curls like black snakes through the vaulted chamber. Lyra feels its power, fury, heartbreak all spinning through her like a storm unbound. She can feel every accusation, every betrayal, every whisper of rejection from her past feeding the fire. And she does not hold back. She refuses. Not for survival, not for mercy, not for anyone. The chains break. Silver flame bursts into the corners of the room, licking walls, scorching stone. The council screams, retreating as the heat pushes them back, the magic pressing against their bodies like a tidal wave. Darius falls to the ground, face contorted with disbelief, every shred of control ripped from him by the force Lyra has become. Kael reaches her just as the hall begins to collapse, walls cracking under the intensity of her fury. His hands grasp at her arms, desperate, pleading, but she shrugs him off, body trembling with rage and sorrow. I am not your sacrifice, she cries, voice raw, echoing over the roar of destruction. I am not anyone's weapon. Her wolf surges, leaping within her, claws, teeth, fire, and instinct combining into one unstoppable force. The Moonwell magic within her, the fire of her bloodline, the echo of her mother's legacy, all converge. Flames roar along the stone, the ceiling shatters, smoke and embers swirl in blinding torrents. She is both flame and wolf, human and myth, unstoppable, impossible, feared. Kael stands, torn, heart-shattering with every heartbeat, unable to stop her, unable to bind the storm she has become. Lyra, he roars, voice carrying grief, love, and futility across the hall. But she does not pause. Not for him. Not for Darius. Not for the pack. Not for the council. Not for the man who had once been her anchor. She turns, coat of silver flame trailing behind her, and flees into the wilds. The fortress trembles. The stone cracks, the fire spreads. The wolves howl, caught between terror and awe, fleeing the wrath of the girl who is always too dangerous to hold. And Kael stands at the edge of what remains, chest heaving, blackened tears streaking his face, watching her silhouette vanish into the storm-swept forest beyond. Guilt and fury and despair coil around him, tight and unrelenting, but he cannot follow. Not yet. Lyra runs. Through mud, through blood, through the jagged forest and the howling wind. The silver flame beneath her skin flares with each step, illuminating the night with the brilliance of her wrath, the depth of her grief. Every heartbeat echoes in her ears, every pang of betrayal and heartbreak sharpening her senses, her instincts, her control or lack thereof. She tastes freedom in the fury, but it is bitter, dangerous, unsparing. She runs not just from Kael, not just from the fortress, not just from Darius or Rowan or the pack, but from the fragility of trust itself, from the fragile bond that could have anchored her to love, to connection, to belonging. And yet, in the core of her being, a spark lingers, quiet, insistent, tethered to the memory of Kael's eyes, to the fire in the cave, to the promise he once offered. Her wolf surges forward, sensing prey, danger, survival, vengeance, but also sensing the tether, invisible, unbroken, an anchor she cannot sever even in this storm of rage and heartbreak. The forest trembles under the force of her flight, the wind echoing her fury, the snow falling like ashes from a world burning in her wake. Kael collapses to his knees at the edge of the forest, blackened tears streaking his face, chest tight with the ache of loss and love. The wind howls through the trees like her laughter, her roar, her fury, carrying her away untouchable, unstoppable, beyond the reach of any hand or heart. He whispers her name into the storm, a prayer, a curse, a vow, Lyra. I will find you. I will not fail you again. And she runs, untamed, free, furious, a girl transformed into myth, into fire, into a force no one can bind. The night itself seems to recognize her power, bowing to the silver flame that burns not just in her blood, but in her soul. Betrayal fuels her, heartbreak drives her, fury sustains her. And in the wild, in the shadows of the forest, under the silver moon, Lyra Vale becomes something more than human, more than legend, more than destiny. She becomes a storm no one can survive unscathed. The forest is quiet before the storm, but Lyra can feel it thrumming beneath her feet. The snow crunches softly under her boots, the cold biting her cheeks, the wind whipping at her hair like the hands of ghosts demanding she remember her past. She stands at the edge of a frozen clearing, silver flame pulsing faintly along her skin, reflecting off the ice in flickering bursts of light. She breathes in deeply, lungs burning, heart hammering, her wolf thrumming inside her like a drumbeat demanding release. Days, weeks, months' time stretches in isolation, and she has learned to be alone with her power. Alone with her grief, her fury, her exile. Alone with the flame that runs in her blood, that courses through her veins, that no one has ever understood. Until now. Until the whispers of the forest, the spirits, the echoes of the flame queen herself. They come to her slowly, at first shapes of mist, silver and translucent, coalescing from the storm wind. Ancient, infinite, patient. They speak in voices that sound like the wind itself, low, melodic, impossible to ignore. You are not a curse, child of the flame, they murmur, voices threading into her mind, lifting her, burning away the shame, the rejection. You are balance. The fire that destroys is also the fire that creates. The wolf that hunts is also the wolf that protects. The silver flame, it is life. It is power. It is destiny. Lyra falls to her knees in the snow, chest heaving, tears freezing on her cheeks. Her wolf stirs violently inside, roaring in agreement, thrumming with anticipation, echoing the spirit's song. The power she had feared, had hated, had cursed in secret, pulses like a living thing. She feels it, stretches it, bends it to her will, and for the first time, she does not recoil. She does not flinch. She welcomes it. Her claws scrape the ice. She shifts slightly, testing control, feeling her senses sharpen, her hearing expanding, her eyes catching every flicker of shadow in the darkened forest. The silver flame flares brighter with each heartbeat, pulsing in rhythm with her determination. The fire is hers now, fully, irrevocably. It does not burn her. It does not consume her. It frees her. And then they come. The enemy she has been running from all her life, the rival packs, united under Rowan's fury, their war cries tearing through the night, echoing across the frozen peaks. Wolves of every shape, every size, every allegiance converge on her position. They smell the power, the flame, the threat that she has become. They charge, fangs bared, claws sharp, eyes glinting with hate and fear. Lyra rises. Every inch of her is fire and frost and fury. She does not hesitate. Her voice rises, clear and ringing. I am not your curse. I am your reckoning. The first clash is instantaneous. Wolves lunge, claws tearing through snow and ice, but the silver flame flares around her, a shield and a weapon at once. Sparks leap from the ice, fire and frost coiling together in a dance of destruction. Her wolf roars inside her, the raw, primal energy surging outward, meeting every attack, every growl, every snap of teeth with brilliance and precision. Then Kael appears, cutting through the enemy ranks like a shadow tempered in fire. Blood streaks his face, torn clothing revealing scars and muscle, his presence undeniable, dangerous, perfect in imperfection. His eyes lock on hers, and in that instant, the storm is no longer just around them, it is between them, tethered by the fire of their bond, the gravity of their shared survival. You were always meant to rise, he murmurs, voice rough, low, reverberating through her chest. And I was always meant to stand beside you. Lyra's chest tightens. She wants to speak, to tell him everything, to cry, to roar, to release the torrent of every emotion she has held inside. But there is no time. The battle is now. Every step, every motion, every heartbeat counts. She sweeps her arms, and the silver flame lashes outward, scorching ice, throwing wolves off balance, burning away shadow and hate. She moves with grace and ferocity, the wolf inside her leaping with pure, unrestrained joy at finally being unleashed. The corrupted moon's spirit reveals itself at the heart of the chaos, a swirling vortex of shadow and rage, eyes burning like coals, form shifting impossibly between wolf and mist and nightmare. It lashes out, attempting to devour everything, to consume the silver flame, to unmake the balance that Lyra now embodies. Kael leaps beside her, sword glinting, claws flashing, his presence grounding her, completing her, amplifying the rhythm of her power. Together, they move in unison, body and spirit, wolf and fire, heart and instinct, battling not just for survival, but for destiny itself. The forest shakes under the force of unleashed power. Trees splinter. Snow explodes in clouds around them. The ground cracks, ice shattering like glass beneath the fury of her silver flame. Lyra rises fully, the true alpha, her form shifting seamlessly between wolf and human, fire licking every edge of her body. Eyes glowing, hair billowing, she roars, and the cry echoes across mountains and forests, shaking the air, shaking hearts, shaking the very souls of those who dared doubt her. I am not your curse, she declares, voice rolling like thunder. I am your reckoning. The moon turns blood red, casting everything in crimson light, reflecting off silver flame and impossible, otherworldly patterns. Wolves fall back, some fleeing, some trembling in awe. The corrupted spirit screams, twisting, lashing, but the fire of her bloodline is unstoppable, tethered now to Kael, to her wolf, to the very spirits that taught her, that guided her, that breathed life into the storm she has become. Every swing, every strike, every pulse of power feels cinematic, immortal, unshakable. The forest trembles. The ice cracks. Snow and fire spiral together, the elements bending to the rhythm of her will. She moves with precision, fury, and grace, each motion echoing the years of pain, exile, rejection, and heartbreak she has endured. Kael fights beside her, every muscle and motion a mirror of her intensity. When their eyes meet, there is no doubt, no hesitation, only unity. Only recognition. Only the electric, undeniable pull of two souls who have burned, bled, and survived, now finally unleashed together in perfect, terrifying harmony. The corrupted moon's spirit falters, its shadow twisting and snapping, but Lyra does not pause. She calls upon the silver flame, her body flaring with light so bright it casts shadows into darkness itself. The spirit shrieks, a sound that shatters the night, and then explodes in light and ash, dissipating into the wind like smoke from a fire finally put to rest. The battlefield falls silent. Wolves stare, hearts pounding, eyes wide with awe, fear, and disbelief. Trees smolder. Snow glitters under the blood moon. And Lyra, chest heaving, silver flame flickering but contained, stands victorious, human and myth intertwined, wolf and fire inseparable. Kael steps closer, voice low, reverent, intimate. You became everything they said you couldn't. Lyra looks at him, body trembling with adrenaline, chest still burning, wolf still thrumming inside her like a drumbeat of eternity. I am not your curse, she repeats, softer now, for him, for herself, for the world that dared doubt her. I am your reckoning. The wind carries her words, the forest holds its breath, and the night itself seems to bow before her, acknowledging the rise of a power that is not just survival, not just vengeance, but destiny made flesh. And for the first time, she is no longer running. She is no longer afraid. She is free. The dawn spills over the battlefield like molten gold, filtering through the smoke and ash, touching the frozen earth with light that feels impossibly soft after the chaos of night. Snow, scorched in places, glitters with the residue of flame. Fallen branches, splintered stone, and the remnants of the corrupted moon's spirit litter the clearing. Wolves, some wounded, some wary, some trembling, linger at the edges, their breath steaming in the cold morning air. Every shadow stretches long and thin across the scarred land, reaching toward a sun that has returned to witness the aftermath. Lyra stands at the center, silent. Her silver flame has dimmed to a faint pulse beneath her skin, a quiet heartbeat echoing the storm she unleashed. The forest around her seems to hold its breath, as if unsure whether to speak, to move, to witness the girl who became myth, who claimed her power, who survived everything and everyone who sought to break her. She breathes in deeply, snowflakes landing on her eyelashes, the frost kissing the edges of her hair, and her chest rises and falls with measured intensity. Kael kneels at the edge of the clearing, his armor battered, blood streaking across his face and chest, breaths ragged, muscles trembling. Every inch of him bears the weight of battle, the consequences of choices made, the pain of loyalty and love intertwined. His eyes are fixed on her, dark and storm-filled, but also with an awe that breaks him and rebuilds him all at once. The distance between them stretches taut, yet in that silence, an unspoken tether binds them, invisible and unbreakable. Lyra's gaze sweeps across the ruined battlefield, the scorched earth, the smoke curling into pale blue morning air, the faint glimmer of silver tracks left by wolves who once sought to kill her but now watch in wary reverence. She whispers, voice low, intimate, trembling yet steady, no throne, no pack, only truth. Her words hang, fragile and defiant, a quiet declaration that reverberates across the clearing. The wind carries them to every corner of the forest, to every wolf that dares watch, to the remnants of the corrupted spirit now dissolved into nothingness. Truth is the one thing she has clung to since the moment of her rejection, since the betrayal by those she trusted most. The one thing that cannot be taken from her. Kael rises slowly, every movement measured, pained, deliberate. He steps toward her, his presence both grounding and electrifying, the distance between them shrinking yet still vast, a canyon carved by betrayal, power, and the fire of survival. Lyra, his voice is low, rough, carrying all the weight of regret, admiration, and unspoken longing. He falters, then steadies himself, searching her eyes, searching the fire within her, searching for a bridge that may or may not exist between them now. She does not answer immediately. Instead, she looks at him with the intensity of someone who has fought everything: fear, rejection, betrayal, power untamed, and emerged unbroken. Her wolf surges inside, pressing against her chest, tail flicking with restrained energy, ears twitching, breath steady. It is a reminder, she is no longer running. She is no longer hiding. She is the storm incarnate. The question hangs in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Would anyone, Kael, The packs, the world at large stand with her now? Could they? Could they see her as she is, beyond the fire, beyond the legend, beyond the scars and betrayals? Her gaze lifts to the horizon, where the first rays of sun catch the tips of distant mountains. The light shimmers across ice and ash, refracting in ways that feel like a promise, a challenge, and a warning all at once. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? The narrator asks softly, voice lyrical, haunting, curling around each word like smoke drifting through the morning air. The question is intimate, personal, as if the listener themselves is standing at the edge of the battlefield, heart hammering, wondering what side they would take. Every pause stretches, resonating with empathy, tension, and the raw weight of human emotion. Is she a hero, or just a girl cursed with too much fire? The narrator's voice lowers almost to a whisper, lingering on the syllables, letting the listener feel the ache, the triumph, and the fragility of someone who has been forged in pain and emerges stronger, radiant, unstoppable, and terrifying in her brilliance. Lyra shifts slightly, silver flame pulsing faintly beneath her skin once more, subtle yet undeniable. Her wolf stirs, ears twitching, tail flicking, muscles coiled with readiness, and she breathes out slowly, letting the fire in her chest meet the fire of the dawn, letting the world witness that she is alive, unbroken, unyielding. Kael steps closer, cautious yet compelled, and in that movement there is promise, trust, and tension. He does not speak, he simply watches, waits, the storm inside him echoing the storm inside her. Their connection pulses like a heartbeat visible in the very air, tethering them together even after betrayal, after chaos, after fire and blood. And then the voice of the narrator softens, intimate, a subtle invitation. If her story lit something inside you, if her fire, her courage, her reckoning stirred your soul, subscribe to Moonlight Desires. Because here, love doesn't fade, it transforms. Here, every heart has claws, every soul burns, and every story leaves a mark you cannot forget. The wind stirs the ash across the battlefield. Wolves shift, watching, waiting, the dawn's light reflecting in their eyes like liquid silver. Kael and Lyra stand separated by only a breath, a heartbeat, a choice that remains unspoken yet understood. Silence stretches over the clearing, filled with tension, reflection, and the quiet power of what has been fought, survived, and claimed. Lyra closes her eyes briefly, feeling the pulse of her silver flame, the rhythm of her wolf, the memory of every betrayal, every loss, every scar. She exhales slowly, letting it mingle with the cold dawn air, a statement as much to herself as to the world. She is not defeated. She is not broken. She is fire. She is wolf. She is reckoning incarnate. Her story isn't over. The world trembles beneath the weight of her fire, and the choices of those who stand with her or against her will define everything that comes next. Would you have stood by her side, or stepped away in fear? The battlefield holds its breath. The wolves watch. The ash drifts in the sunbeam. Kael's gaze remains locked on hers. And Lyra Vale, child of the silver flame, survivor of betrayal, master of fire and wolf, stands in the dawn, alive, unbound, unstoppable, waiting for the world to answer. The sun rises higher now, brushing its pale light over the shattered battlefield, yet the shadows cling stubbornly to the corners, curling like smoke around the trees, the stones, the remnants of flame. Lyra steps lightly through the ash, boots crunching softly, wolf senses alert to every flicker of movement, every breath of wind, every heartbeat that does not belong to her. She is exhaustion and fire entwined, every muscle humming with power, every nerve alight with awareness. Kael follows at a careful distance, wounded but unwavering, his gaze never leaving her. The air between them is taut, heavy with everything unsaid, everything survived, everything that still threatens to tear them apart. And yet, in that tension, there is something unbreakable, something eternal, a bond forged in betrayal, fire, and battle, stronger than fear, stronger than fate. The forest itself seems to recognize her presence. Trees shiver in the breeze, leaves falling in spirals of silver and frost. Snow drifts through the clearing, catching in her hair, dusting her shoulders like the remnants of some unearthly crown. Even the wind seems to carry whispers of ancient voices murmuring praise, warning, and prophecy all at once. The air vibrates with tension and possibility, every gust a reminder that nothing in this world remains static. Lyra pauses at the edge of a ravine, looking out over the jagged cliffs and frozen rivers below. The world stretches vast and empty, yet alive with danger and opportunity. She inhales sharply, letting the cold bite at her lungs, letting her wolf stir in anticipation. Her silver flame flares faintly beneath her skin, a heartbeat of power that matches the pulse of the forest, the wind, and the blood in her veins. Kael steps closer, cautious, measured, his shadow stretching long beside hers. "This doesn't feel over," he murmurs, voice low, carrying both awe and dread. His hand hovers near hers, inches apart, tethered not by touch, but by something deeper, something neither of them can define entirely. Lyra doesn't answer immediately. She tilts her head slightly, eyes scanning the horizon, heart steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. Her jaw tightens. Her wolf growls low, a warning, a thrill, a song of hunger for what comes next. The world has shifted under her feet. She has claimed her power, survived betrayal, burned everything that stood against her. Yet she knows the fight is never truly over. There are always shadows, always threats, always the pull of destiny, waiting to test her again. The first whisper reaches her then, carried on the wind, subtle and deliberate, almost impossible to hear. It coils around her mind like smoke. She is not the only one. Lyra freezes, pulse quickening, silver flame pulsing brighter under her skin. The words are not a threat, not a greeting, they are a warning. She senses it with every fiber of her being. Somewhere in the shadows beyond the mountains, something watches. Something waits. Something older than time itself, hungry for fire, for power, for the reckoning she has begun. Kael notices her stillness, the subtle stiffening of her posture, the flare of her power. "What is it?" he asks, voice careful, steady, but his eyes betray concern, fear, and the unshakable bond of someone who knows the stakes, who knows the world they have chosen to walk together. Lyra exhales slowly, the breath visible in the crisp morning air, mingling with the faint silver mist of her flame. She doesn't answer immediately. Instead, she lets the silence stretch, letting the wind carry her words in a whisper to no one, to everyone, to the world itself. The true alpha hasn't risen, yet. Her words hang in the air, heavy, foreboding, impossible to ignore. They carry prophecy, warning, and promise all at once. The forest shifts in response, as if the very earth has heard and holds its breath. Wolves in the distance lift their heads, ears twitching, nostrils flaring. Shadows lengthen, stretch, and shift with intent. Even the sun seems to falter behind a sudden veil of cloud, casting everything in fleeting, ominous half-light. Kael steps closer, placing a hand lightly on her arm, a gesture of grounding, of connection, of shared strength. "Whatever comes," he says softly, dark eyes never leaving hers, "we face it together." Lyra turns her gaze to him then, silver flame flickering softly beneath her skin, wolf resting but alert, heart steady, mind sharp. There is pain there, yes, loss, betrayal, heartbreak, but there is also clarity, power, and the unwavering conviction of someone who has survived everything and emerged stronger. She nods once, faintly, deliberately, letting the unspoken understanding pass between them like fire threading through veins. "And if the world fears me," she whispers, voice low, almost musical, carrying both defiance and curiosity. "If they run from what I am?" Kael's hand tightens on hers, a silent anchor. "Then they'll have to run," he replies, quiet, confident, but tinged with awe. "Because you are more than fire. You are more than a wolf. You are everything they were never ready to face." The wind gusts suddenly, carrying the scent of distant forests, of ice, of snow, and something darker, something ancient and watching. Lyra lifts her chin, eyes narrowing at the horizon, silver flame pulsing stronger, wolf stirring in anticipation. Her every instinct hums with the knowledge that what has passed was only the beginning. The narrator's voice drifts in then, slow, deliberate, intimate, curling around the listener like smoke curling from burning wood. This isn't over. The flames she carries are not just for herself, they are for the world that dared to doubt her. The paths ahead are dark, the enemies unseen, the power unimaginable. Would you stand with her or turn away in fear? The choice is always yours. A shadow moves in the distance, long and impossible, bending the light, warping the snow. The wind shifts again, carrying a whisper that freezes the spine and quickens the heart. She is not the only one. Lyra steps forward, fire and wolf and human combined, silhouette strong against the rising sun, eyes glowing with the promise of power, reckoning, and survival. Kael steps beside her, tethered by trust, by choice, by the storm that has bound them together. And the narrator closes, voice lingering like the last note of a haunting melody. The story waits. The reckoning continues. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the next storm is already rising. Will you face it with her, or watch from the safety of the shadows? The snow drifts, the ash swirls, the wind howls. And Lyra Vale, child of the silver flame, stands poised, untouchable, unstoppable, a force no world can contain.